Welcome back. We're still in the book of Philippians. We'll be this week and for a couple of more weeks after this. But I hope everybody has had a nice week. If you live in our area in California, you've had some 90-degree temperatures and approaching 100 degrees. So it's been pretty warm out here. This week I was reading a book by Ernest Hemingway titled A Moveable Feast. It's his book about his time in Paris. And something I read reminded me of the passage that we will look at this week in Philippians. He's reflecting on what he thinks about when he has writer's block and when he's not able to write. And he wrote that he thinks, "Do not worry, you have written before, and you will write now. All you have to do is write one true sentence. Write the truest sentence that you know." And so finally I would write one true sentence and then go on from there. It was easy then because there was always one true sentence that I knew or had seen or had heard someone say. If I started to write elaborately or like someone introducing or presenting something, I found that I could cut that scroll work or ornament out and throw it away and start with the one true, simple, declarative sentence that I had written. He became famous for that sentence, that he wanted to write one true sentence. And as I read that, as I told you, I was reminded of the passage that we're going to look at in the next few minutes from Philippians chapter 4. We're nearing the end of chapter 4, but today we're going to look at verses 8 and 9. If I were to make a list of my 10 favorite passages in all of the Bible, and I've never done that, but if I should do that, this passage would definitely be on that list. Finally, uses the word finally because he is coming near the end of his letter to the church in Philippi. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. What an incredible list that Paul has included in just that short paragraph, 2 verses of prose, pointing them towards things that are true and honorable or noble, just or right. Different translations use different words. Things that are pure and lovely and admirable and excellent and praiseworthy. Think on those things. Take the time when you see or hear something that falls within that category. Think on those things. This passage is one of the reasons why I have continued in my life to read children's literature, children's books. Because many of the books that have been written for children are books expressing ideas or events that fall into that category of things that are true, noble, honorable, just and right, pure and lovely, admirable, excellent, and praiseworthy. So much of what we could read, or so much of the conversation we hear from time to time from people, or maybe see on television or in movies or things like that, are things that wouldn't fall into those categories. So I think it is good for us to focus our attention on things that are things that are pure and true and noble and lovely and admirable and excellent and praiseworthy. To give our minds time to focus on those things. And then to respond to them, to take action. In a sense, this beautiful passage is really a call to action. And then once you do that, Paul gives a promise that the God of peace will be with you. In verse 7, he mentions that the peace of God will be with you. And now he's saying that the God of peace will be with you. Take the time to think on things that are true and pure and admirable. Things that are excellent and praiseworthy. When Paul became a Christian, most of you will remember that he had been a rabbi, a Pharisee. He had been a persecutor of the church. And so he became a Christian in Damascus. And right after that, he left Damascus and he went to Arabia. And our best guess is that he spent about 2 years in Arabia. He alludes to it in Galatians in the first chapter, but he didn't give any details. And Luke, who wrote the book of Acts, didn't include any details about Paul's time in Arabia. So we don't know what he spent his time doing. My opinion, my guess, is that he spent that time thinking through what would happen with his life now. Because everything to which he had committed his life changed. And he was embarking on something new. And so I think, and this is just my opinion, but I think Paul spent that time evaluating what he had intended his life to be before becoming a Christian. He was a rabbi. He was committed to God as he understood God. He was committed to the Old Testament scriptures and what was taught there, and he was committed to the lifestyle of a Pharisee. And so we know that Paul fasted twice a week, and he gave 1/10 of all he earned, and things like that Pharisees did. But I have to guess that part of that time was Paul not just evaluating what his life had been, but thinking about what his life could be, because he returned from that time with a commitment to doing something that no one would have ever guessed, and that was that he wanted to reach Gentiles. As a Jewish rabbi, he would have had no interest in Gentiles, which means he would have had no interest in me, because I'm about as Gentile as a Gentile can be. And so I think, as we look at this passage, did Paul spend his time thinking about things that are true and noble, things that are right and pure and lovely and admirable and excellent and praiseworthy? See, Paul had to spend time thinking about things before he could take action. He had to know what he was going to do before he did them. And I think that's very important for all of us. Every once in a while, I'm around somebody who's just become a Christian, and the person is ready to run out and save the world, and I love that energy. But one of the things I counsel people over and over, think through what you're about to do. Sit down and create a plan. Jesus mentioned this in Luke in chapter 14. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay a foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying, this person began to build and wasn't able to finish. Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Won't he first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he's not able, he'll send a delegation while the other is still a long way off and will ask for terms of peace. In this same way, those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciples. Jesus is saying, you want to be a disciple? Think it through. Think through the cost. Think through the sacrifice. Think through the dedication. Think of these things, and once you've thought through, put them into practice. Put them into action. And the God of peace will be with you. Who are the beloved? Go and be the beloved.